Mr. Chancellor, it is with great pleasure that I present Dr. Susan McClary, one of the leading scholars in musicology today. Professor McClary is an important thinker about music. She excels in connecting musical details with larger social and cultural ideas. She's widely recognized to be the first feminist musicologist whose work received significant attention. Her first book, Feminine Endings from 1991, was one of the founding documents of what has become known as the New Musicology, a movement that turned away from the dominant approach to music as a self-contained aesthetic product towards engagement with the larger meanings of musical procedures in relation to social practices, gender, sexuality, and politics. Her work embraces historical musicology, music theory, feminism, queer theory, and popular music studies. It also employs serious musical analysis of works to explore fundamental issues such as mode and the development of tonality. She links musical processes to many different aspects of culture and society, and her analyses bring music to life as an expression of desire, power, and struggle over ideas. In her writings, she passionately communicates her intense love of music and deep knowledge of musical styles across historical periods. In so doing, she has helped make musicology relevant to a wider audience. Professor McClary has a strong connection to McGill, having taught here for 3 years, beginning in 1991. She's currently head of musicology at Case Western Reserve University. For all of these reasons, Mr. Chancellor, it is with enormous pride that I present to you Susan McClary, that you may confer upon her the degree of Doctor of Music, honoris causa.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to invite Dr. Susan McClary, McGill's most recent graduate, to deliver the convocation address. Dr. McClary.
It is a particular honor to have been invited to address you, the students, faculty, and graduates of the Schulich School of Music, because 25 years ago, McGill saved my life, or at least my career. I had just left an academic post that had become untenable and had moved to New Hampshire with my husband, Robert Walser. I had no prospects for a job. Out of the blue, I received a call from my old friend, Bill Kaplan, who invited me to join what was then called the Faculty of Music. I spent 3 productive, if chilly, years here in Montreal, and I fell in love with the city, the students, and my colleagues. I count my decision to leave McGill for the seductive climate of Southern California among the worst I have ever made. And this makes my homecoming for an honorary Doctor of Music all the more meaningful for me. Many things have changed in the School of Music since I left, not the least the new facilities. You don't have to wear mittens in the classroom anymore, though you still have to suffer the baleful gaze of Queen Victoria as you enter. But the curriculum has also expanded to meet the needs of an ever-changing musical landscape. When I was here, McGill had a thriving jazz program, the first ever in Canada. It now includes some of the leading figures in popular music studies on its faculty. Already a site for experimental and electronic music, it has emerged as one of the most exciting centers for new music and sound engineering. Even its program dedicated to early music performance has moved into the digital age with Tom Begin's virtual recordings of Haydn. You have all benefited from attending one of the most stimulating and innovating universities in North America. Those of you receiving your degrees today face the challenges of building a career. Newspapers alert us on an almost daily basis to the difficulties encountered by graduates with specializations in the arts, and counselors advise students to enter professional schools or the hard sciences if they seek gainful employment. But history teaches us that we choose our vocation as musicians regardless of the risks. Those of us who persist in focusing on the arts do so for reasons separate from potential income. When I was in graduate school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I had a friend, Dr. Helen Mahut, who had studied neuroscience at McGill with the famous Donald Hebb. Helen's research involved rhesus monkeys. In one of her experiments, she gave her charges the choice between a pellet of food or 30 seconds of music as the reward for successful completion of a task. Most of the monkeys grabbed the pellets without hesitation, but about 10% of them pushed the lever that allowed them to listen and then raced through the next task so that they could listen some more. They clearly would have starved if left to their own devices. Now, I hope you don't mind being compared with rhesus monkeys. They're our fellow primates, after all. But those of us who were born this way, wired in such a way as to make musicking a basic necessity, already receive a great deal of fulfillment from what we do in rehearsals, on stage, or in the library. We thirst for music almost as much as we do water. That doesn't imply, however, that you should just get along with a smile and a song. You have not developed your skills or acquired all that knowledge for nothing. Art for art's sake is very well as an aesthetic program, but it doesn't put food on the table. Yet recall that the music scene, competitive as it may be, is something of a meritocracy. That's why children of immigrants and other marginalized populations often gravitate toward music. Think of the numbers of African American musicians who have become stars compared to their relative absence from most other walks of life. In my lifetime, I have seen the torch pass from mostly Jewish concert artists to Asians, and most recently to Latin Americans. You are entering the profession at a particularly exciting moment, for you now have access to modes of production and circulation scarcely conceivable 2 decades ago. If musicians in eras past had to rely on commissions from patrons, acceptances from publishers, and the programming decisions of concert halls and opera houses, YouTube has made it possible to broadcast performances and new works instantaneously, without the mediation of gatekeepers. Of course, YouTube also presents the mediocre and the truly awful, along with the more worthy uploads. But as I prepare to speak at the Ojai Festival next week, I can easily preview videos by the featured composers, most of them young women who have not yet hit the mainstream. They're all right there at my fingertips. I recently heard composer-performer Carolyn Shaw urge music students to form groups and experiment. This is how her celebrated group, Roomful of Teeth, came into existence. Although she trained at Harvard and Princeton, her prize-winning work proceeds from her close interactions with other young performers and their collective imaginations. You don't have to wait for the official green light any longer. The talent in this hall represents our collective future. Some of you will become concert artists, some composers, some sound engineers, and some teachers. Indeed, many of you have already established professional reputations. For all the doomsday warnings of the death of classical music, or of jazz, or of rock, or what have you, people today crave music in their lives. Witness the ubiquity of iPods, the proliferation of new genres, and performing stars. I completed my schooling before the advents of minimalism, disco, music video, punk, spectralism, and even hip hop. and I now write articles about all of these. No one can predict the trends of the next 50 years, but you will be in the forefront, shaping not only those trends, but also the ways listeners come to experience their bodies, their emotions, and their human potential, all of them powerfully influenced by new modes of musicking. Congratulations and very best wishes for happy and productive futures.